Eileens. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Happy Wednesday. Time for this week's installment of Trades Lady Happy Hour with yours truly. I'm actually at home this week, which is awesome. I've been grinding literally all day, so I apologize for the dirt. I'm literally covered in that blue color glitter, otherwise known as metal shavings. But I am excited for happy hour. I hope you guys are too. I've got a fun guest today. Her name is Eileen Hershman, and I have not actually met her, but I've heard wonderful things about her. She is involved with a group that I am familiar with, and one of the other women from that group that she's involved with is at the shop right now, working on the Iron Maven project. And so I'm really excited to meet her and hear her story. Eileen is a certified technician. She has been in the industry for a very, very long time. So I'm really interested in hearing her story and how she got involved and what her experience has been like as a technician. Hopefully she should be joining us soon. I don't see her face quite yet, or her name popping up quite yet. Let's see. Yay! It's Eileen. All right, sweet. We have somebody here. Yay!
Hi.
All right, so I see you have EI as your handle. Do you? I don't know how to pronounce that. Is that how you go? What you go by?
Yeah, it's short
Okay,
for
so just
it's I. It's short for Eileen.
Okay,
So
I like it.
I go by either
That's
one.
cool.
Yeah.
So you. I'm super excited to meet you. Would you just give like in a super nutshell who you are, where you're from, and what you do professionally for the fine folks at home watching this, and then we'll dig into some more juicy stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, my name's Eileen, or I for short, or Eyeball if you play softball with me. Originally from California, Bay Area, Santa Cruz. Started working on cars and motorcycles down there. And then I moved up here in '08 and just worked on cars ever since.
No, that is short enough. That's beautiful.
Is that short enough?
I was introduced to you through Car Crush, Emily from Car Crush. And so you do some stuff with Car Crush. Do you want to tell folks a little bit about what Car Crush is and what you do with them?
So Car Crush is a all-female or non-binary or whatever, but car group that basically, how's it to describe? We're all like really good or really big, eager car enthusiasts. So even if you know nothing at all to, let's say, an ASC technician like me, we're all together. We help each other out. We also do car shows once a year. Hey, Hirsch. Sorry, my buddy just popped on. Well, before COVID, so we would put on the car show once a year, and all these women or non-binary folks would come and bring in their vehicles that they worked on themselves and show them off at the car show. Other rad artists would be there, that kind of stuff. I taught some classes, just basic, easy classes at these car shows, like how to hook up your battery or change a tire or check your oil.
Should know how to do.
Little things like
every
that.
person, I should say. Everybody.
Every person.
And these
yeah,
days,
exactly.
it's just as many men as women who don't know these things.
Definitely, yeah. And what else do we do? Oh, we have a podcast. That's another thing we do. Oh, yeah, there's that. So, yeah, Mandy and Emily do a lot of questionnaires with other people, too. And then we have our own edition of it where it's called two dipsticks and a spark plug. And so basically people bring in their questions and Mandy and Emily try to answer them. And then, yeah, it's just all jokes and laughter and they try to figure it out. And then I just
with the correct
slide
answer.
right in there with the answer.
Oh.
I try to be as correct as possible. And I'm not perfect.
Very cool. I love that. I think it's really neat that you guys are doing so much to, or I should say you gals, are doing so much to really reach out to like the car enthusiast, the car curious, I think as Emily likes to call it, which I think is really cool. Kind of a way to reach out to folks who maybe don't necessarily want to be technicians or don't know how to start in getting involved in the industry and really making it fun and welcoming and interesting for women to explore. I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Oh, for sure. Or even if they just want to work on their own rig and they don't want to be a technician, but if they want to work on their rig, I mean, more power to them to gain that knowledge and want to grab their tools and work hands on. Like, just fix your own car. Cool. If you want to work in the industry,
I love it.
cool.
I love it.
I'll help you.
Super cool. So, when did you first start working on cars? How old were you?
Technically 17. It's when I had my first car. It was a 64 Dodge Dart, and yeah, being raised up in the Santa Cruz Mountains and not having any money, had to fix your own cars, and I started fixed my 64 Dart, and then from then on, I just fell in love with it. Oh wait, no, before that, I rode truck with my dad. That's right. And then I started working on his big rigs, and then I started fixing my cars, and it just
What's
how do you say? Like tumbled after
Snowballed.
that, or snowballed. Thank you, honey. My wife, my wife's like snowball.
Yeah. That's awesome. So did you go on the road with your dad when you were younger? That's awesome. That must have been a really fascinating, awesome experience.
Oh yeah, I think I was 15 when I started to do it, and he would ride from Canada all the way down to Mexico, and we just go back and forth. And
so he's kind of how you got started working on vehicles. Pabst, really? Cheers.
I drink Rogue Dreamland, but this was the only thing they had at the store.
I will forgive you. I drank Pabst in college, but I would drink it out of a glass with a lime because you could almost convince yourself it's Corona. Almost.
Oh, true. Almost.
Awesome. Well, cheers. So dad is who introduced you to working on cars, yeah? Basically,
yeah. His dad before him too was he would do his own work at the house. Okay. That's where I started seeing it. But growing up in a household back then, a lot of years ago, decades ago, you know, women don't work on cars, so I never got to touch them. But I was always intrigued by my grandpa working on the cars, and then my dad helping him. And
did grandpa not allow you to work in the shop with him?
He was, without being so stereotypical, but at the same time I kind of am, he was old school German. Like, men do everything, women cook. And my grandma was Italian, and she's like, okay, I'll cook all the time.
Did that make you want to do it more?
Yeah.
Or did that, like, hold you back at all? Did that have an effect on you think?
I would say, I'd say anytime people try to close the doors on you, you always try to break them down. But it's hard to tell because I really have a passion to fix cars, so it's hard to tell whether him saying no to me saying, yes, I'm going to do it, and then my dad allowing me to help him fix his rigs while we were broken down on the side of the road.
So dad was super accepting, it sounds like.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Even now, he's like super proud. He's like, hold on, let me call my daughter, awesome. Figure out what's wrong with my truck.
That's got to feel really good.
Yeah. Oh, it does, yeah. And both my parents are supportive. My mom's very
Was it always that way? That mom and dad were both super supportive of it? Or was there ever a point where they were like, really?
Never once questioned me. Never once. They were just like, you do you. They've always known since I was younger that I was just independent and I do whatever I want to do, and well, to an extent.
As long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. As long as I'm not in jail, they're like, it's good. But yeah, they're both really proud of all my accomplishments and whatnot.
It's nice hearing that because you don't always hear that, and I'm sure you've heard stories from other folks. You know, and not just automotive. You know, really any industry. You know, you talk to kids whose parents are not supportive of what they want to do, and it's sad to hear. So that's really awesome to hear about your parents. So how did wonderful.
I was definitely lucky.
How did your journey kind of start from there? You got into cars, you were interested in them, you knew you wanted to pursue them. Did you wind up going to school at any point, or did you just dive right into the industry and start working?
So after working on my Dart when I was 17, I was like, oh, I love this. I really want to get into it. And I had another female friend who was working at Speedy Lube in California, which is like a super high-end Jiffy Lube. Yeah, we got Hummers.
That feels like an oxymoron, Eileen.
Yeah, this is way back. Well, it was in Los Gatos, so they were like super high end cars that would come into our shops. Like, anyways, so my friend was working there, and she's like, "Hey, you want a job? Like, or come down into the pit. We're gonna change the oil on your mom's car." I said, "Sure." I went down there. The manager came by and was like, "You know what you're doing? You're hired."
Nice.
I was like, "Oh." Like, it was that simple. And then I started out there for 2 years, but I started to get really annoyed when I would ask the other guys, "Hey, what does this do? What does this? Why does this do this?" And they're just like, "Well, I don't know. I just do this." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you get into this industry and you make more money because you're a dude. So you say works on cars, and you can just do that because you're a guy." But, yeah, so I just got annoyed that they didn't know and they couldn't explain stuff to me. So then I went to school for it, graduated.
So you did wind up going to a tech school. Was it like, which school did you go to?
Technically not tech school, but it was City College of San Francisco.
Nice.
But they did have an automotive program.
This is a kind of conversation that I have often with people, and I'm curious your take on it, because you kind of started just getting into the industry without school and then decided to go back to school. Like, for somebody younger thinking about getting into the industry, which path do you recommend for people? Because I feel like that's the eternal battle. Like, do you just dive in and work your way up, or do you go to school and get a degree? Do you get a certificate? Do ASEs matter, right? Like, I hear those kind of conversations all the time. What's your take on it?
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to really sit down and think about what kind of technician you want to be. So when I started, I was like, yeah, let's dive right in. Cool, I know how to work on cars. But then when I started for those 2 years, I was like, well, I really don't understand like how this system correlates with this system. And I just wanted to learn more. If you just want to be a parts changer, dive right in, learn how to turn nuts and bolts, like whatever. But I wanted to do more of the diagnostic. I really wanted to delve in. I really wanted to know how cars worked and how everything worked with each other. So that's why I ended up going back to school, got my degree not only in automotive but in motorcycle. And then I started working at a motorcycle shop and then back to an automotive shop. It was just, you find your niche, basically. And going back to school was way more helpful than just working in a shop because, like I said, a lot of these guys get hired in who don't really have a basic understanding. They just are like, oh, yeah, I know how to change the parts, or I know what that sounds like.
Well, and especially at like an oil change place, right? Like, they're not necessarily, they're more entry level kind of technicians or mechanics. So that definitely makes sense. But I think I love the way you said that, like, assess what kind of technician you want to be. Because there is a big difference, and for some people, like, it's 100% okay to just dive in, and then I think so much depends on where you get your opportunity and what kind of apprentice you fall into, or apprenticeship position you fall into. Because sometimes it works out really well, but it just seems to me, I agree with you, that it's harder to work your way up versus going to school and getting that foot in the door and getting that base knowledge. Especially if you want to be a diagnostic tech. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And just like I'm reading this comment here from Bread and Butter, or working on shops doesn't mean that they're good teachers. That's correct. Like, I've definitely worked in shops where you've had the head technician just not want to help you or not actually understand. Yeah. So it's definitely good to go back to book knowledge and just really understand the core of things, because when I did that, then I was able to actually figure out other stuff that other technicians couldn't figure out, because I understood the underlying principle and whatnot. And then you could build up from there.
I hear people say that all the time, like, oh, book smarts don't mean anything. It doesn't mean you know how to, which end of the screwdriver to hold. And on the flip side, knowing which end of the screwdriver to hold doesn't necessarily mean you understand, right? So there is that happy medium that if you really understand the basics, if you really understand the fundamentals, then you can work on anything. Like, nothing's scary, because it's all the same systems. It's just figuring out how one manufacturer does it versus another. What was it like for you going from like, all right, I learned how to work on my Dart. to working on modern cars and how different they are? Was it what you expected getting into cars?
In a sense, yes, because I knew that they were going to be more complex. I mean, the most complex thing about my 64 Dart was setting the points
Right.
on when I did the tune-up. Like, that was the most complex thing. I was like, oh, this is easy. And then working on these newer cars, and then quite a few years ago, I went to Denver for 2 weeks. Did all this like
That's awesome.
multiplexing, binary code, all this learning of that stuff, and I was
That's
like,
super
whoa,
cool.
that is. Yeah. It was definitely a whole lot of, how do I say, like, scary knowledge to like look at. You like, because right now we're in the in between stage. Like, I'm almost 40, and I still have quite a few years left to be doing this. So it's like, okay, well, I started right at OBD2 and learning my way up from there, with then also going back and learning OBD1 and breakout boxes and all that stuff, and then learning how to do OBD2. Sorry, brain fart. Going to OBD2, and now cars are coming out with OBD3 and new Freon and multiplexing and binary and all this. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's such a huge progression.
So that raises an interesting question, right? Like, I'm with you. I'm in my 40s. Been in the industry since I was in my early 20s. So we kind of come from a similar experience level and background. Like, seeing this progression from OBD2 all the way up to where we're at now, I hear a lot of technicians not like the new technology or upset about the technology changes. What's your take on it?
More room for me, more job security. If they don't want to learn it, I get the job.
Perfect answer.
Cheers to that.
Absolutely. I feel like, and maybe this is crazy to say, but I feel like with all of this new technology, I feel like there's a ton of opportunity for the playing field to be leveled between men and women. Like, women still make up only like 2.5% of all technicians, but like there's with all of this new technology, there's this huge opportunity. There's such a deficit of people who know hybrids or all electric vehicles, and what an awesome opportunity for a whole new bunch of fresh faces to come into the industry and like kick butt in it. I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, like, there's always been an advancement of technology. Like, people get stuck on that. Like, oh, hybrid, that's putting mechanics out of business. No, just like fuel injection didn't put mechanics out of business, right? Like, it's just new.
Right. They didn't put the carburetors people out of business. Like, you just learn the technology.
It's exciting and fun to learn new stuff. All right. Cool.
Yeah, my coworker today, interestingly enough, I was working on this car with it was a conversion van to a camper and all that other stuff, like all these electrical problems. So it took me about a week to actually get it all figured out, and I finally got it figured today, got it all together. And my coworker looks at me, old, redneck hillbilly, been around for as long as I've been alive, worked on cars. And I walked by him and I was like, yes, I finally finished the electrical problem. And he's like, F that electrical problem. I stopped working on electricity back in the 90s. And that's what I mean. I was like, that's why you're the parts changer. And that's why, he does trainees and all that other stuff. He does huge heavy line work. But he's like, yep, that's why I don't do any of that. He's like, you're done with that. And I was like, that's cool. You be the muscle for that. I'll be the brain
for all of it. Right? At the end of the day, there's totally a place. Yeah, we all bring something
everybody
to the table. So, you went to school. What was your first job when you got out of school? Okay, that's right. So,
a motorcycle.
And how long were you there for?
I worked at a motorcycle shop. Oh, good question. All those days are kind of hazy. It was when I lived in San Francisco.
Nice. All right. I
don't need to say more than that, but it was definitely a while. I feel like I was there for like 2 winters, because what it was is it was a not like you call like a reclaimed bike shop, but like people would sell us their old bikes, and then me and the other person we would tear down the bikes and then find out what parts were good. And then I
Oh,
would
so you
list them
work
on
for a
eBay and then we
motorcycle
would sell them that
shop.
way.
I've
And then
seen
whatever
those.
parts were good. Right? I was wondering why all the VINs were scratched
All
off.
makes so much sense now.
Right?
What a
Now that
great
you
way to
mention
learn, though.
it.
Like stripping down cars, stripping down bikes. Like I feel like that's such a fantastic way to learn. I remember my first job in the industry. I worked for an independent BMW shop, and I, at the time, hated my boss for doing this. But there were all these junk cars in the back, and he's like, "Go out to that car back there and pull the ABS unit. I think I'm going to use it for something." And then I would come in with it, and he's like, "You can throw it in the trash. It's garbage." I'm like, "Damn it!" Like he just wanted me to learn how to take things apart.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right?
That's great learning right there. Yeah.
Frustrating.
And that was the same with these bikes, right? Yeah. I bet. Yeah, she had me take off quite a few tires off the rims, and then she was like, "Ah, never mind, they're bent."
But you
Like, dang
learn.
it, I just did all that work. And it was all by hand. Yeah, it was all by hand. We had one tiny shed that held most of
Wow.
our tools, but we all worked outside. Well, it was the owner and then me and then one other person. But yeah, we worked
Nice.
outside all
Crazy.
weather, all year long. So I'm like, really? You made me take off this tire by
Well,
hand?
my,
We don't
my
even have a
same first
machine?
boss, he wouldn't let me use power tools at all. Air tools, battery power tools, nothing for the first, like, I don't know, 8 months that I worked there. Everything had to be by hand. He would not allow me to use power tools. And again, one of those things where at the time I was like, this is stupid. You're an a-hole. And now looking back at it, I'm like, I get it, right? You get
Yeah,
that feel for how tight things are and how much torque you're putting on a bolt. Like it makes so much sense now. Lesson to those out
for
there,
sure. Yeah,
newbies. Like sometimes the people who are driving you the most crazy, there may actually be a method to their madness. Do you
exactly.
miss
Yeah.
working on motorcycles? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Except for me, oh no, I was just gonna say, except for me, I gave our daughter, I think at the time she was 5, so I was looking through my videos today, and I gave her my electric gun to zip back on the tires. Yeah. I'm like,
Totally.
yeah, 5 years old,
Well, it's
you
hard
can
to
handle
over
this.
torque them with an electric gun, so it's totally fine. That's
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
awesome that you
Yeah,
got.
she
How old
zipped
is
them
she now?
on.
Nice.
She just
And
turned
you've got her
6
working
last
on
month.
cars. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, she's been, what, she started helping when she was, what,
Does
4?
she like it?
Yeah, 4. Oh
That's
yeah, she loves helping. Come on, baby.
I love it.
They're sitting right
She's
here
your
in the room with me.
technician.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's gonna work on cars.
No?
Huh? Yes, yeah. No, I know you heard her say no. She meant to say yes.
I love it. That's
She's
all
a
right.
little,
Totally
she's a little under the weather right now.
Do you miss working on motorcycles at all? Or do you still get to do some of that?
Um, I don't work. I haven't worked on motorcycles since I moved up here in '08. It was probably '06
Oh
or
wow.
'05 was the last
Wow.
time I touched one of them. Yeah, I don't miss it. I really like working on cars.
Why? What's the difference for
It's
you?
just bigger challenges. I just felt like motorcycles were just too small and too easy to do. Like if I could lift the engine by myself and I've got pencil arms, then I wanted something a little bit more challenging. And basically, my path always when I started working on cars was I wanted to make them greener. And I was really inspired by this guy who came to my school back in the days, and he had worked in, oh, I can't remember what country it was, but where they had like almost no technicians. And he taught them all about smog and pollution and actually started cleaning up their vehicles. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So that was my main goal, was to start working on cars and make sure I can make them run better
How
so they
interesting.
wouldn't,
I love that.
you know.
So you're now you transitioned from motorcycles to cars. Where are you? What was your journey like from that point? What did you start at after motorcycle? Like what kind of
Well,
shop and what were you doing and what was that transition like going from motorcycles to cars?
yeah, well, like I said, my main focus was never motorcycles. It just happened to be that I got hooked up, and it was a queer woman who worked there and another queer person who worked there. So obviously, I wanted to work there. But after that, what did I do? Oh, well, being San Francisco, I was working as a bartender in the Castro. You know, because you have to make money, and there's no way. That's why I was doing
Gotcha.
motorcycle in the day, bartending at night. And then I was like, I don't want to do this bartender life. I really need to like really get back into working on cars, but you can't do that in the city unless one, you're funded by trust fund or any of that. So basically couldn't make ends meet. And then my friend and I passed through Portland one night and I was like, hey, let's live here. She said, yeah, let's do it. And I moved up here. It was a lot cheaper.
Nice.
So I was able to get back into it and get back to working on cars because that was my passion. And it was hard, you know, moving away from family, moving away from where you've only lived your whole life in the Bay Area to
Were you able to find work?
come up here. But
Nice. Were you able to
I
find
did it,
work
and I love where I'm at.
easily, or how did that?
I believe it was,
Nice.
I know it was under 2 weeks. I can't remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks, but it took a while to transition, and my friend had a dog, so I was, you know, working with the dog, transitioning up here, and then I was like, hey, I'm going to go get a job.
Wow.
I played for 2 spots, and one of them said, come in
That's
tomorrow.
so awesome
You're basically
to
hired.
hear, because we're going back quite a few years at this point, I'm assuming. And my experience
It was
back
in
then
08,
was
yeah.
not as welcoming. So to hear that you had such a like got hired right away, had all these opportunities, like that's so cool to hear.
I was literally hired, the shop manager said he hired me only
Really?
because I was a woman.
Okay, that's one
And
I've
I was
never
like,
heard.
wait, what? Yeah, and he's like, I'm tired of working. Yeah, and well, I mean, I already had ASCs by that point, so that's what I said first. I was like, you only hired me because of ASCs. He's like, no, I hired you because you're a woman, and I'm tired of working with all these men who are sloppy, who just guess. And he was being very stereotypical of like, or no, what do you call that word? Where you're just like guessing.
Yeah. Or
I mean, I guess it is a stereotype. Yeah. Like just assuming that because I was a woman, I was clean and organized and thoughtful and can actually work through problems. I mean, I am, but it was just funny that he just assumed it. Oh yeah, I'm so clean. See, that's what I mean. It was a stereotype, and I just happened to fit into that. But not all of us are clean. But
totally,
everybody is what it is. Like
that's
their
so
own
interesting to me.
technicians.
I've never heard somebody from a female technician say that they'd had that experience of getting hired just because they were a girl. I've heard the opposite. You know, not getting hired just because they were a girl. So that's kind of, I mean, even though he was being stereotypical, it's still kind of cool.
Right, yeah. I was like, thank you for giving me the opportunity, although you don't know these things about me, but it was cool. He gave me the opportunity, and then later on he was like, yep, that's the reason why I hired you.
Ooh, that's a great word.
Oh,
good job.
That's yeah. Yeah, Bogey says great word.
That's awesome. So, and I take it you're not still at that shop?
No.
Oh, you were at a dealership.
That was a dealership that I worked at.
So are you at an independent? Okay.
Oh, I've bounced
so
around.
Here's another question for you, because I hear young people in the industry, male, female, doesn't matter, young people coming up in the industry who are fearful about the bouncing around thing. Like they don't want to have it on their resume that they've done too many jobs or that they've, that they just leave. I think there's a flip side to that coin of, find the right place. And if you haven't found the right place, go do something else, get as much experience as you can everywhere that you can. So you've bounced around a bit. Do you feel like that was detrimental or beneficial for you?
So beneficial. So beneficial. From the Speedy Lube shop I worked in Los Gatos to the motorcycle shop I worked in San Francisco. Oh, wait, I did work for an independent lady in San Francisco, but for a very short time. And then, like, dealerships, huge chain company, to just an independent shop of me and the owner. And then from there to another Portland chain automotive shop to now another nationwide chain shop. But all of that has been brought on by different experiences and everything that you can bring into one. Because at some point I want to have my own shop, and just by taking all these little experiences of how people are running their business and how people are treating the customers, the services, basically, yeah, just, and it's the same thing as like going to school. Find your niche, find out what kind of technician you want to be, find out, do you fit into the dealership profile? Like, is that a spot that you want to work, or do you want to do independent shop or a specialty shop? Awesome. That kind of stuff. Just basically just bounce around until you find it.
Love
so
that. Perfectly stated. Thank you for that. I agree with you, and I think it's interesting you brought up the idea of you want to own your own business one day, and you're doing all of this experience gaining to kind of prepare you for that. And I maybe have you talk on that a little bit more? Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but I hear from a lot of young technicians that it's like the first thing they want to do. They graduate from tech school and they're like, I'm going to open up my own shop, like right away. What? Talk about that a little.
Sorry. Don't do it. Don't jump in right away. It's too much. Way too much. And I've seen the books on all the places that I've worked, because not only being a lead technician, but they also put me in charge of like service manager, that kind of stuff. And I see the books, I see the troubles, I see, the stress of it. Like, and I'm thankful now. I went back to a chain company and I was like, I'm thankful now at least I have a steady paycheck. And basically just steady work, because you never know what's going to happen. I worked for an independent guy for over 3 years, and he left me the last 2 months of me, or 10 months of me working at that shop, and basically no profit in the shop. He was going to sell it to me, but I was looking at the P&L statements, and I was like, this is just too much. Equipment, rent, like, you think it's going to be easy? Because I thought the same thing, too, at that point. I mean, what was it, like 5 years ago? I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to have my own shop now. Like, he's going to sell me the shop and all this other stuff. He was trying to sell it to me for way too expensive. Good thing I did my research.
And that you knew how to read P&L sheets.
But then looking into insurance. Oh, yeah. I took business management courses in college also. I went back about 8 years ago and did a bunch of business management, because I was like, if I'm going to own my own shop, I need to know how to do P&L statements. I need to know how to do credit and debit sheets.
So smart.
If you leave it up to just somebody else who's going to do the books for you, how do you know that the books are right?
Cheers to that. I think that needs to be heard. Like, so many people need to hear that. Being a business owner and being a mechanic or a technician are two very different things. And which is it that you want to do? And if you want to do both, get training in both, because they're two different career paths, right? Like, they are different things.
Definitely. Way different. You could figure out how to work on cars all day long and read wiring diagrams and read Mitchell or Chitlin or whatever you want to go for, but doing books
and you're absolutely right. Like, people can take advantage of you and you don't even know, because you don't know how to read the books yourself. So, yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So how did you get out of that situation? It sounds like you were kind of like, you were going to buy the shop. It kind of fell in your lap because he abandoned you and left you with everything. How did you get out of that situation?
Well, he had moved away like 10 months prior, so I was running the shop by myself for 10 months. And one of my friends, she was helping out for a little bit too, but basically, what was it? Oh, I was talking to the landlord. I'm sorry. I was talking to the landlord, and he's like, oh, didn't you know that you're actually moving out and the shop's not going to be here anymore? And I was like, no, I had no idea. And I guess because the owner of the shop, who had moved, 5 hours away, stopped paying his bills and stopped paying all this, and I had no idea. So I think that's why he wanted me to try to buy the shop for 5 times more than it was.
What a crazy story.
Yeah, I thought it was a good deal to begin with, so I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. He gave me a month's notice before he left. So he gave me the price, and I said, yeah, sure, it sounds okay. And then I talked to somebody else and then another person. And then I got people came in to quote the equipment and all that other stuff. And then I took a really deep look into the P&L statements and then was like, oh, no, this is not good. And that's the thing you have to think of, too, even if you think it's a good deal. And I've been working with this guy for 3 years, and I was like, oh, he's not going to screw me over. He's super nice. He was a really nice guy. And then it turned out business was not his it's not his strong suit.
Oh my gosh, so much great stuff that I think so many people need to hear. I appreciate you sharing all of that and that story with everybody. There's so much there. Anybody who's thinking about opening a business, like rewind that back and listen to that again. Because not to discourage people from owning a business, but like
exactly. Exactly. Take the time and don't just jump in. Like I was ready to shake hands on his last day there, but I was like, something in the back of my mind said, hold on, figure it out. So yeah, just take a step back, breathe, get the business assessed, get all that stuff assessed. Right? Or I would be not in a good spot.
All right, so you've worked at smaller independents.
Yeah.
You've worked at bigger chains. You've worked at dealerships. Pros and cons of them, what's been your favorite so far and why?
The pro of working at the dealership, good benefits. That's about it. They loved me there. I got to do whatever I wanted at the time. So I flew way under the radar because there were so many other technicians there that they were the ones with the eyes on it. And I was the one out playing in the snow when it snowed. Like, I guess. Well, technically I had to shovel the snow, but whatever.
That was not my experience in dealership life, but all the more power to you.
Right. No, it can get kind of crazy there because as a technician, you have to write down like what the parts you need and this and that. And then the parts guy I had would get so crabby and be like, can't you write the part number down? I'm like, you're the parts guy. I just have to tell you what I need. It just got weird. But that was it. You had to follow a lot of protocols at the dealership, do the warranty work, recalls. That was all the stuff I got to do. But that made it easy because I could turn on a GMC sunroof or the inside
headliner.
Oh my gosh, the ceiling part of it because so many of those headliners. Thank you.
Right, I feel you. You've been working
hard. At the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got really good at taking off those headliners and replacing the sunroof motors and all that because they were all recalled. That kind of stuff gets to be like, you could tear down a 3.8 intake all the way down or down to the lower intake manifold before lunch, like because you're repeating it over and over and over again. So that's kind of like the pros of working at a dealership.
I agree with you.
Yeah, the cons are they jack you on flat
that's
rate.
like the trade-off, right? Like you have the job security, you have the benefits, and you do get good at stuff, so you can be fast at it, so you can make those flat rate hours, but then the flat rate gets cut back, and you're doing, I don't know about you, but like I got bored of it. Like it was, if I can walk out to the car and before I've even test driven it, by reading the RO, know exactly what's going on with it and what the problems are because it's the same thing over and over again. Like I needed that challenge of something new and fresh.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got bored of it after a year and a half and I left.
So small.
I mean, a year and a half is not much, but
totally can understand
it was enough.
That. So small independent shop versus big chain.
The small independent shop was awesome. I ended up, my grandma passed away, so I got her dog, who was very codependent and could not leave my side. So at a dealership level, I wouldn't have been able to have the dog. But at the independent level, I had 3 beds for him placed around the shop, and he was old. Between 13 and 17, he was with me. So he would just walk around the shop and just do whatever. When customers would come in, they'd be like, "Oh, dude, it's Dude," you know.
That's
like,
awesome.
His name was Dude. My dog's name was Dude. And so they would get out of their cars and come over and pet Dude, bring him snacks. I mean, it's just that little bit of person-to-person contact. Whereas, like, at the dealership, you don't have contact with the customers. There we did. And my dog was able to roam free and hang out with people in the waiting
room. Awesome
room.
Independent shop.
Yeah. That's oh, for sure. That was the best part.
So you moved from there to a larger chain, which is where you're at now, right? So what's that experience? I've never worked in a
Yes.
large chain.
Hmm.
I've done dealership and I've done independent life. What's chain life like? If that's a phrase.
So I've worked at so far two huge chain shops all over the U.S. I mean that have stores all over the U.S. And then I worked for one chain shop
Okay.
here in Portland that has four shops. Um, the one that was in Portland wasn't so bad. Let me see here.
That's okay.
I
That's
don't really
okay.
want to say the company's name because I don't want to get in
No,
trouble.
no need.
But the first change, right? Like, oh, I don't need
Nope.
all that
So I take
lawyer
it not a
stuff right
positive
now.
experience.
The first one was not positive. That one, although they did provide benefits, a lot more benefits than I definitely get now, um, a lot less pay, and even as being flat rate, they still offered you a guarantee, but the flat rate on the jobs
Really?
was like almost cut in half of what the normal pay
That's
should be paid.
yeah.
Like, if that makes sense, like, you could do
Oh wow.
an oil change was like point 0.2 or point 0.3 at the time, whereas like now if you do an oil change, it's
Interesting.
like point 0.7 or point 0.8. So for those who know flat rate, you know that's a huge difference,
Okay,
and then
so
they could.
here's a question for you. One day, not too far from now, hopefully,
Mhm.
you open up your own shop. Will you pay your technicians flat rate or hourly or a combination of the two?
That would depend
Okay.
on the flow of the shop. I want my flow of the shop to be a lot slower. I want it to be more precise. I want people to actually clean off surfaces. Like when they do brake jobs, I want them to clean the hubs, like that kind of stuff. So I would probably jump down to just hourly because I want people to actually, how do I say, not
Yeah.
be stressed about making hours as flat rate. 'Cause that's where I am right now. Like it's just like you're trying to hurry, you're trying to hurry, you're trying to hurry through jobs. You might skip something. Um, we just had one guy in our shop who just quit, and that's what he would do. He was so worried about making money on flat rate. He skipped things. He kept breaking stuff. I had to keep going over his jobs and fixing things. So I don't want any of my technicians to feel that stress. I'd rather them have pride in their work and do the job correctly. You know, make everything all pretty and
Yeah.
clean before you give
No,
it back to the
I
customer.
like that. I always paid my technicians in my old shop. I paid them like a weird combination of flat rate and hourly because I wanted to
Hmm.
incentivize both. I had a shop like management coach say to me once that you want to like incentivize the things that you want more of, right? Like I wanted quality, but I also wanted
Yeah.
efficiency. So I wanted to reward both of them. Like the way I always looked at it is like I pay for you to come and hold the toolbox down because if I don't keep cars coming in, it's not your fault. And I want you to not feel rushed and take the time to leave the car better looking than you got it, right? But on the flip side, I don't want you like sitting around twiddling your thumbs. So like I gotta like incentivize it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
There would definitely be a bonus structure for sure. It's just like, hey, you busted this
yeah,
week. You popped out so many cars. Like, here's your bonus structure. That's what I have right now with this company that I'm the chain that I'm working for now. They have that. You have a guarantee. You work 40 hours, you still get paid your 30 because they know that you're there working. And
yeah,
especially for someone like me doing all the diagnostics, and
yeah.
that kind of takes a little bit longer. Um, and then on top of that, if you make certain hours in the week, you get a bonus. And then there's another pay
Yeah.
structure. You make this
Makes
much, you
sense.
get a bonus on top of that. So I appreciate that. It's nice for some weeks that I'm there 6 days and I
Yeah,
bust out 60 hours. It's nice to have that
absolutely. And as a
little bonus on
diagnostic
the
tech,
paycheck.
like there's pros and cons to getting really good at diagnostics because there isn't the money there necessarily. You could spend hours beating your head against the wall on something and then there it's not like flat rate on a brake job. You're not going to make a ton of money really fast. It's harder work. It's slower work. It's not as well paid, so it can be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, the mentality can be kind of hard. Like I said, I just finished that conversion van this morning, And I mean, like the past week, I still flagged, 40 hours last week, but on top of that, I was still trying to figure out this van that
But you still got to figure
not
it
making
out.
hours on,
You got to
but
get it out the door at some point. Yeah. Well, congratulations on getting it out
exactly.
the door.
Yeah. I did. I got it out today. And the funny thing is, man, just happened to be this little pin in a connector the tab
Those
was
are the
barely
worst,
pushed
aren't
down.
they?
Yeah. Well, it ended up like blowing a bunch of other things in the system. So I'm like replacing this on the conversion van. And then I ended up unplugging that plug. But when I plugged it back in, because I had, those little alligator clips on the back of it, I think one of them pushed the tab down just barely. So when I plugged the connector back in, that tab fit down.
Wow.
Oh man, those things are going back because you're just like, I just tested
Right.
that.
Yeah,
That was
like
really
chasing
good.
your tail.
Yeah, that switch was great. What happened? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's the worst. And yet, like the most satisfying when you win at the end of the day, right? Like those are.
Oh, it made my
I hope you're
day.
to celebrate tonight.
So great.
With your PBR.
For sure. Oh gosh, I don't even want to drink it.
So our hour, I know, right?
I
So
want
our
my
hour
dreamland.
has flown by incredibly fast, which means I've had a blast talking with you. I feel like this has been a great conversation for so many to hear, and God, we covered a lot of ground. This has been really cool. I'm super grateful that you agreed to join me and hang out on a live with me for an hour and talk shop. My final question that I always kind of like to ask and leave everybody with is, if you had the opportunity to talk to the younger you, or a kid out there who is like you, thinking about getting into this industry, wants to do what you're doing, what are your words of advice to them?
Oh man, just stick with it, even if other people don't. How do I say? Don't really have that faith in you, in a sense. Like being a queer female for myself, in this industry, and especially back when it wasn't acceptable. Oh man, you get comments all the time. You get comments and like Bread and Butter made another good comment earlier about saying like, oh, they want to talk to the men in the shop and whatnot. Don't let that defeat you. Just work harder and just keep going and just show them, And I've had so many people call also and just be like, hey, I want to talk to the man in the shop. And I'm like, well, I am the man in the shop. You can just talk to me, but just don't take it so personal, because a lot of these people, and like I said, my grandfather, he was very negative about letting women work on cars. But I pushed through, and then I just kept going, and that's just some people are just raised that way. It wasn't like he didn't love me. It was just that was the way he was raised, and same with my dad. But my dad was able to change it. Just that kind of stuff. Just remember, like, people come from a different background than you, so don't take it personal. Just stay professional and keep doing what you love, and just keep pursuing it and keep learning. That's about it. But I did tell myself that when I was a younger age.
And I think that is so great. I'm so grateful that you brought that up and said it the way that you did. It's, yes, it's one thing to say, people are going to be naysayers, work hard and prove them wrong. Like, that's true. But that other layer of, don't take it personally. You don't know what people are coming from and how they were raised and what their belief is, and give them a chance to learn from you. You prove them wrong, right? And hopefully they learn from that and change their perspective on women doing this kind of work and putting people in boxes that they don't necessarily belong in. So I love that.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be so harsh and come at them and be like, you're being rude, you're saying this. Just be professional about it and just talk to them like a human. And
I love it. Changing hearts
and minds. That's what I do with my customers, basically. And then they're kind of like,
I love that. That is beautiful. Yeah. I'm so grateful you came and hung out with me. We're a little bit over our hour, and I know you've got family to get back to and celebrating getting rid of this van to get back to. So I'm going to thank you again so much for joining me, sharing your story with everybody. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Thanks for hanging out with us for this last hour. This happy hour session will live on my IGTV along with all of the other happy hour sessions over the past year that we've done. So if you want to go back and check them out, feel free to. If you want to rewind this and hear anything that Eileen said over again, because she dropped some serious wisdom on y'all. So go back and give it a listen again. And I hope everybody has a fantastic evening. Eileen, I hope you have a fantastic evening. To all, be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I really
Fantastic
appreciate it. It was awesome.
Have a great night. Thanks, and bye, everybody.
You too.